What's up everyone and welcome back to the MMA Zone. Today, let's get started with Sean O'Malley not thinking that he'd fight against Pedro Munhoz would be stopped. This was supposed to be Sean O'Malley's toughest fight to date, but it ended in a disappointing no contest after Munhoz was apparently unable to see out of his right eye. The number 13th ranked O'Malley was taking on the number 9 ranked bantamweight Munhoz at UFC 276 on Saturday at the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas. Munhoz, who was looking to get back to his winning ways after going 0-2 in his last 2 fights, was poked in the eye by O'Malley in the second round of Saturday's contest. As Munhoz came in to hit O'Malley, Sugar Sean used his hand to try and push off Munhoz, but it caused an accidental eye poke. A doctor was brought in to take a look at Munhoz's eye, but after he stated he couldn't see out of his right eye, referee Jason Herzog waved off the fight at the 3-minute and 9-second mark of round number 2. It was a very anticlimactic ending, no doubt a disappointment for both men who were looking to mix it up to see who would move higher in the bantamweight division. This is how Sugar Sean reacted following the end of the fight.
I was very surprised that he was unable to continue.
Later on, he went on to tweet this: "First man to finish Pedro." There's a shared sentiment online through the reaction of fight fans and even some fighters about the severity of Munhoz's eye injury, with many saying that he's just taking the easy way out. Regardless, there are calls for the UFC to rebook this fight at a later date, perhaps even as soon as later this month for the UFC 277 card on July 30th, headlined by the UFC Women's Bantamweight title fight rematch between Juliana Pena and Amanda Nunes. What do you think about the way this fight ended at UFC 276? Do you want to see this fight get rebooked as soon as possible? And who do you think would win this fight? Dustin Poirier and Michael Chandler at confrontation at UFC 276. There was a lot of talk about what came out of the highly anticipated UFC 276 event inside the cage and now outside the cage. Former lightweight title challengers Dustin Poirier and Michael Chandler had a pretty intense encounter while sitting cage side for the event. We only know about this because welterweight contender Gilbert Burns was sitting nearby and he captured the tense moments on video through his phone and he later uploaded it onto Twitter. Just check out this profanity-laced confrontation during the UFC 276 pay-per-view on Saturday. Though it is a bit difficult to hear, it appears as though Poirier is telling Chandler that he's a fake MFer, while Chandler can be heard saying that he'll mess up Poirier. The two go off on each other and again, it's a bit hard to hear, but they're clearly pissed off. It's unclear what led to this exchange specifically, although Poirier has stated his disdain for Chandler in the past, so it could be related to this. Poirier criticized Chandler's run in the UFC while speaking to Ariel Helwani in a recent interview on the MMA Hour. The Diamond repeatedly stated that Chandler has not beaten anyone in the UFC who had come off of a win, referencing Chandler's wins over Tony Ferguson and Dan Hooker, both of whom he knocked out, but both had lost fights before meeting Chandler in the cage. Chandler is coming off his win over Ferguson, while Poirier has not fought since he was submitted by Charles Oliveira in their lightweight title fight back in December at UFC 269. Neither have a fight lined up, and while Chandler did cut a great promo to challenge McGregor back at UFC 274, the UFC could have a ready-made fight on their hands here if this feud continues to escalate. What do you think about this whole situation? And do you feel these two should fight? Who do you think would win that bout? Jon Jones talks about his potential heavyweight debut. Jon Jones' long anticipated move to the heavyweight division is still on the minds of fans. As each pay-per-view event passes, without Jones taking part, there are more questions about when he'll be able to finally step in the octagon again. This was exactly the case this weekend, when Jones was asked on Twitter about the rumored fight against former heavyweight champion Stipe Miocic. This is how Jones answered: "I don't know, but I'm glad Dana came out and said something. I'm ready. I've been ready, waiting on a date." Jones last fought in February 2020. when he beat Dominic Reyes by decision to retain the light heavyweight title he held for the better part of a decade. He later vacated that title to move up to heavyweight. A year later, he was rumored to have a potential clash against new UFC heavyweight champion Francis Ngannou. Those plans fell through as both men made it clear how much money it would take to get this fight done. The UFC moved on to crown an interim champ, keeping both fighters on ice. Ngannou finally fought in January of this year, was crowned the undisputed champion again, but will likely be out for the rest of this year as he recovers from serious knee surgery. This leaves Jones with a handful of names left in the basket, the biggest of which is Stipe, who has not fought since he was knocked out by Ngannou in March of last year for that title. But it's unclear when exactly this fight would get done, seeing that Stipe wants to fight closer to October-ish. What do you think about Jones's comments here?
Henry Cejudo was backstage giving you some grief.
That little fat ass should stay retired. He's running around drunk in the backstage, got escorted out, who's tripping over things, running into things. Looks like he's on drugs, looks fat. I don't know, maybe he's having a midlife crisis or what.
Did he say that you were a tune-up fight for him or something to that effect?
He mumbled some words like that. Is that realistic? Does Henry come back? He looks fat as shit. I don't think, what does he want to fight in 3 years?
Hey, Sean, if you want to match him and he's right here, I'd love a tune-up. What do you say, Precious? What do you say? Yeah, I'm good to go. When would you want to bend the knee on what time? Because I think you absolutely suck. But go ahead, carry on with the interview. Go ahead, carry on.
Don't forget to take a second to hit that like button and subscribe to the MMA Zone to stay up to date on the latest fight news. Sean Strickland speaks after his knockout loss to Alex Pereira. The middleweight clash between Sean Strickland and Alex Pereira saw Strickland hit the canvas in the first round. Pereira stopped Strickland with a strong left hook about halfway through the opening round, and he followed that up with a right hand just before the referee called the fight for Pereira. It was an incredible display for the Brazilian, who was unranked going into this fight against Strickland, the number 4 ranked middleweight in the UFC. Pereira has been getting a massive push by the promotion ever since he entered the UFC late last year, on account of the fact that he's beaten Israel Adesanya twice in kickboxing, the second time via knockout by left hook. Now, Pereira has earned the chance to fight for the middleweight title, as per comments made by UFC President Dana White before the fight. Meanwhile, Strickland was undeterred after losing to Pereira the way he did at UFC 276, though he does seem disappointed, and he stated this on his Instagram page.
The part about it was, during the round I kept thinking, man, this is going to be an easy fight. I see everything this guy's throwing. I'm getting the better of the exchanges. I'm going to beat this guy up for 3 rounds. And then halfway through, I got caught. So hats off to Alex. He's a thanked all my coaches. Saw we're going to get the win. It's depressing. I'm going to go fucking be sad for a while.
Strickland goes on to say that he's going to get back in the saddle and once again try to climb up the ladder to get into title shot contention. Strickland has been talked about as a potential contender in the middleweight division just before he fought Jack Hermanson earlier this year. While he did win that fight by unanimous decision after 5 rounds, he was now matched up against a strong fighter in Pereira, who has only fought twice before in the octagon before tonight. What do you think is next for Strickland? Who will he likely take on next? And are you excited for the Adesanya-Pereira matchup whenever it's scheduled? Thanks so much for joining us today. What do you make of what's going on in the fight world? Make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel to stay up to date on all the latest news from the MMA Zone. See you next time.